I was 23 years old when I discovered that my entire life had been nothing more than a business deal I never agreed to. I was sitting in my room that night, trying to finish some paperwork related to my university studies, which I was close to completing. The house was strangely quiet, and my mother's voice drifted up clearly through the old wooden staircase. At first, I had no intention of listening. Then I heard one word that froze me in place. My name. She said it in a way I had never heard before. Cold, calculated, as if she were talking about stocks on the market, not her daughter. She said that Mr. Martinez had agreed to all the terms and that he would pay a large sum to settle the family's debts, along with another amount as an advance gift. My father replied in a tired voice that he felt some guilt, but that he had no other choice. My mother let out a short, dry laugh and said that girls get married eventually anyway. So why shouldn't the marriage be useful to the family? My older brother was there too. I heard him say that Martinez was 55 years old but very wealthy, and that he would take good care of me. He said I was lucky that a man with that kind of money was interested in me, even though I wasn't anything special. The words reached my ears, but my mind refused to absorb them at first. I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to understand what was happening. How could the people who raised me, who lived with me all these years, talk about me this way? How could my mother, who used to hold me when I was sick, laugh while planning to sell me? I kept listening and found myself learning all the details. They planned to tell me in 2 weeks. They would say that a respectable man had proposed and that I should agree. They were confident I would say yes, because I had always been the quiet, obedient girl who never caused problems. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, trying to think clearly. Fear filled me, but there was something stronger than fear. A deep sense of betrayal so intense that it turned into something cold and solid in my chest. In that moment, I realized I had never truly been part of a family. I was just an asset to be used when needed. In the morning, I went down to the kitchen and acted completely normal. I said good morning, smiled, and poured myself some coffee. My mother was making breakfast. My father was reading the newspaper. Everything looked ordinary in a way that was almost terrifying. That was the moment I started planning. I had 2 weeks before they told me. Maybe another week before the pressure to agree began. I needed money first. I had a small bank account with some savings from my part-time job during university. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. I started selling my belongings quietly. Anything I could sell without anyone noticing. Some books, accessories, clothes I no longer wore. I sold them online and collected the cash, hiding everything in a small bag under my bed. I also began gathering important documents: my birth certificate, passport, academic records. I made copies of everything and hid them. I moved carefully and acted perfectly normal around them. I played the role of the ideal daughter while secretly planning to disappear. On the 13th day, I woke up at 4 in the morning. I put on simple clothes and took one small bag containing a few clothes, my documents, and all the money I had collected. I left everything else behind: books, photos, gifts, even my phone. I knew they could track me through it. I left the house quietly and walked through the dark streets until I reached the bus station. I bought a ticket to a distant city I had never visited before, a large city where it would be easy to disappear. I sat on the bus with my head against the window, watching the city I was born in fade behind me. I didn't cry. I wasn't sad in the way I expected to be. There was fear, yes, but there was also a strange sense of freedom. I arrived in the new city in the evening. It was huge, crowded, and intimidating. I didn't know anyone, and I had nowhere to go. I spent my first night in a women's shelter after finding its address in a public library. The place was clean, filled with stories of women who had escaped difficult lives. For the first time, I felt that I wasn't alone in this kind of pain. In the following days, I started looking for work. The money I had would only last a few weeks if I was extremely careful. I began working at a fast food restaurant. The shifts were long, the work exhausting, and the pay low, but I was grateful to have something. I rented a small room in a cheap area. It had nothing but a bed, a small table, and a window overlooking a narrow alley. But it was mine. It was the only space in the world I had chosen for myself. The first months were the hardest period of my life. I was completely alone. I had no friends and couldn't contact anyone from my old life. I was constantly afraid they would find me. I avoided cameras, walked through side streets, and tried not to draw attention. At night, I lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city, wondering if I had made the right decision. But deep down, I knew that if I had stayed, I would have died slowly. Not physically, but in another way. A death of spirit and will. After 6 months, something happened that changed everything. One of the restaurant's regular customers was a woman in her 40s who came every week and ordered the same meal. One day, she noticed me reading a book about business management during my break. We talked briefly, and I learned that she owned a small web design company. She asked if I was interested in technology. I told her I had been studying business administration at university but hadn't finished. She looked at me in a thoughtful way and said she was looking for administrative help and was willing to train me if I was serious. That was the moment my real life began. I worked with her and learned everything about running a small business, dealing with clients, managing projects, marketing, accounting. She was a strict but fair mentor. She taught me that success comes from discipline and persistence, not luck. I worked with her for 3 years, long hours, learning something new every day. At night, I read about entrepreneurship, followed success stories, and dreamed of building something of my own one day. The loneliness was still there, but I learned to turn it into strength. I learned to listen to myself, trust my judgment, and rely on no one else. After 3 years, I decided to start my own business. I had saved some money and had a clear idea. I wanted to build an online platform to help women learn entrepreneurial skills and achieve financial independence. The idea was inspired by my own experience. I knew how hard it was to start from nothing alone. I used everything I had learned and every connection I had built to launch the project. The beginning was slow and frustrating. There were months when I made almost no income and lived at the bare minimum. There were moments when I wanted to give up, moments when I felt like a foolish girl with unrealistic dreams. But I always remembered that night when I heard my family talk about me like a commodity. I remembered the coldness in my mother's voice and the contempt in my brother's. It lit a fire inside me. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was determination to prove to myself that I was far more than they ever believed. I kept working, day after day, week after week. Slowly, things began to improve. Women started signing up for the platform. I received positive feedback. People began talking about the project. After 2 years, I had a small team and stable revenue. After 4 years, I expanded into consulting services and training programs. After 6 years, my name appeared in articles about women's entrepreneurship. Throughout all those years, I never once tried to contact my family. I changed my phone number, email, and all social media. I was dead to them, and they were dead to me. Or so I thought. In the 10th year after my escape, I had become fairly well known in my field. My company ran programs in several states and partnered with large organizations. I spoke at a major conference and shared my success story, without mentioning the real details about my family. I spoke about starting from zero and overcoming challenges. A week after that conference, I received a message through the company website. It was from my mother. I read it several times, unable to believe it. It was short and direct. She said she had seen me at the conference, that she was very proud of me, and that she wanted to talk. She didn't mention what happened 10 years earlier. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask why I disappeared. She just wanted to talk. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, another message arrived. This time from my brother. It was longer and more emotional. He said they had tried to find me for years and had been very worried. He said the family was going through difficult circumstances and needed my help. He didn't specify what those circumstances were, but he asked to meet. That was when I understood the real reason for their return. It wasn't love or concern. It was need, money. They saw that I had succeeded and become capable of helping, so they came back. I felt the same coldness I had felt 10 years earlier. I decided to meet them. not because I wanted to forgive or forget, but because I wanted to see who they had become. I wanted to look into their eyes and see if there was any real remorse. We agreed to meet at a cafe in their city. I traveled there after all those years. I walked in and saw them sitting at a corner table. My mother, father, and brother. They looked older, more tired. My mother saw me first, stood up quickly, and tried to hug me, but I gently stepped back. I sat down and ordered coffee. They talked as if 10 years of absence had been nothing more than a short vacation. They spoke about life, the weather, relatives. Slowly, they approached the real subject. My brother said they had gone through a severe financial crisis. He said my father had lost his job years ago and that their debts had piled up. He said they had tried everything, but nothing worked. Then he looked at me with a look I knew well, the look of expectation. He said he had heard about my success, that I now owned a big company, and that I was the only one who could help them. My mother added, her voice slightly trembling, that I was her daughter and that family should stand together in hard times. My father said nothing. He just stared at the table. I sat there, looking at all of them. I saw that they hadn't really changed. They didn't ask how I had lived all those years, how I had succeeded, or even why I ran away. All that mattered was what I could give them now. I took a deep breath and calmly told them I would help. I saw relief in their eyes. My brother smiled. My mother cried softly and thanked me. I told them I would pay their debts and help secure a stable income for them, but on one condition. We had to speak honestly about what happened 10 years ago. The smile froze on my brother's face. My mother stopped crying, looking confused. My father finally lifted his head. I told them, in a calm but firm voice, that I knew everything about the agreement with Mr. Martinez. I knew they planned to marry me off for money. I knew they didn't care about my opinion or feelings. Silence filled the table. Then my mother tried to justify it. She said things were difficult and that they had no choice. She said they thought it would be better for me to marry a wealthy man. My brother said I was exaggerating and that I had been young and didn't understand that marriage can sometimes be a practical decision. My father said quietly that he was sorry, but life is hard and sometimes people have to make hard choices. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get angry. I told them calmly that I understood everything now. I understood that to them, I had always been a means to solve their problems. I said I would indeed pay their debts because I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to leave people drowning, even if they deserved it. But I made it clear that this would be the last time they ever heard from me. There would be no calls, no messages, no meetings after this. I told them they had sold their right to be my family on that night 10 years ago, when they sat together planning to sell me. My mother tried to object. She said I couldn't do this, that she was my mother and blood doesn't change. I looked at her and said, in a voice that didn't tremble, that blood alone doesn't make a family. Family is built on love, respect, and real sacrifice, and they had given me none of that. I stood up, ready to leave. My brother tried to stop me. He said I was selfish and ungrateful. He said they had raised me and provided everything for me for years, and this was how I repaid them. I stopped for a moment and turned to him. I told him very calmly that he was right. They had raised me. They had raised me so well that I learned exactly how not to be. I learned not to treat people as tools. I learned that dignity and freedom matter more than any amount of money. I learned to respect myself even when no one else does. I thanked them, with quiet irony, for these valuable lessons and walked out of the cafe. The next day, I transferred the money I had promised. It was a large amount, enough to clear all their debts and secure them for years. But I added a short message with the transfer. I wrote that this money was not for them, but for me, for my peace of mind, so I could sleep knowing I hadn't sunk to their level. I wrote that I wanted neither thanks nor apologies, because I was no longer interested in anything related to them. I asked them to live their lives and let me live mine, and that if they tried to contact me again, I would consider it harassment and take legal action. After that, I changed all my contact information once again. In the months that followed, I expected to feel regret or sadness. Instead, all I felt was deep relief. There was a peace in my life I had never known before. I no longer needed to imagine what would happen if they returned or what I would say. I had closed that chapter completely, on my own terms. I didn't take revenge in the way people imagine. I didn't try to destroy them, expose them, or make them suffer. I simply gave them exactly what they gave me: coldness, financial calculations, and clear boundaries. I gave them the material help they needed, then cut every emotional tie, just as they had done to me. My revenge was showing them a mirror image of themselves. The only difference was that I paid the money while they were ready to sell me. My life continued after that, calm and productive, and that was all I ever needed.